Our next guests are going to take us inside the post-apocalyptic world of Prime Video's newest sensation called Fallout, a gripping series that brings the beloved video game franchise to life like never before. Please welcome actors Walt Goggins and Aaron Moten, executive producers Todd Howard and Jonathan Nolan, along with showrunners Graham Wagner, and welcome to Austin by Southwest Studio. How we doing, everybody?
So awesome. We did it.
Teleprompter is the best.
Yeah.
You know,
Our
so-
other showrunner had to catch a flight back to LA. That's why there's a plural showrunners there. There are two of us.
In spirit.
In spirit.
Is what's happening right here. All right, so I got the first question for Todd. And Todd, I just want to let you know, man, is that as someone who came late to the game on like the Fallout like world, because not even regrettably, my whole life was sucked into Skyrim for like 7 years straight. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
My college teachers also thank you for that. But Fallout is like your baby. Like this is like your thing. Like what is it like bringing this to life? Like what made you like say, yes, let's do this?
I mean, we said no for a decade, and you know, a lot of people would come and want to translate Fallout. It's such a great world, and it's really about finding the right creative partners. You know, I reached out to Jonah, and once we connected, it was like, I mean, honestly, felt like we've been friends for a very long time, and we saw, you know, it very similarly in terms of, let's do something new. Let's do something in the world that feels like, hey, what happens? What would like the next game, if we did one? Let's find a unique place in the world. Let's have new characters. Let's tell a new story, and they've just done an awesome job. It's been a great process for me.
That's really great. And I feel like we're like almost in like a renaissance of video game to movie, TV adaptations, right? You know, we've got The Lastofus, right? I would also say Sonic the Hedgehog fits in there as well. You know, so getting like Fallout, like there's a lot of fans. I saw the trailer yesterday. Everyone's like really stoked about it. Like it's incredible. Jonah, you joked one time about like collaborating with people who are dead because they don't argue with you.
It's true, they don't.
Todd's alive. He's sitting right here.
He is presently alive or with us. No, when someone whose work, like you, I had lost quite a lot of personal time to Fallout 3. And when someone whose work you admire that much asks you to go to lunch, you just say yes. And it was as if we had known each other for years, just one of those conversations, so easy. I mean, last night we stole a car together here in Austin. That was exciting.
I need that story.
It's a good one. But coming out of that lunch, we knew immediately that we were gonna make something together. And for me, so then for me, it just becomes, oh shit, here's the responsibility, here's the giant responsibility of taking something that you know and you love and trying to find, and I've done a lot of adaptations in my career. We're usually adding something.
Right.
If it's a comic book, we're adding movement. You know, if it's a novel, you're adding everything visually. You're always losing something too. With a novel, you're losing some of the psychological component to it. You know, with a game, you are losing a lot. You're losing a lot of that freedom that the players have. But what we felt like we could bring to it was that sense of immersive reality. And so we sort of concentrated on how can we make this series feel every bit as large and breathtaking as the games make you feel, you know, and really transport people who maybe had never played the games into the unique tone and the political satire. There's so many wonderful things in these games that hopefully we have preserved and brought to the screen.
Yeah, one of my favorite things about when I saw the trailer is that it definitely has the feel of like a Western, right? It's like the world where, you know, not everybody is trusting of each other. Like somebody's out to kill you no matter what's happening, like, you know, where you're at. And to take it over to Walt, like you play a bounty hunter in this world called the Ghoul.
I do.
Right? You look great, by the way. Like the no-nose look.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate
You
it.
got the nose. I mean, I haven't seen nobody rock a no-nose face as well as Voldemort, and you done it. Like,
You know what? It's hard wearing sunglasses. That's the only thing. You know, that's what's really hard about it.
it's just slipping off your face all day. Now I need some set photos of Walt with sunglasses on with no nose. Well, as this bounty hunter, as I understand it, you've taken some inspiration from like other westerns, like Western icons like John Wayne, Clint Eastwood.
Yeah, you know, I watched it. Jonah and I talked about this a lot, and we the way that the story kind of explores that aspect of the personality is something you'll come across when you watch it. But I did, yeah, and I just kind of figuring out who this guy is, you know, is a person before the war started and a person 200 years after the war, after the bombs have been dropped, right? And so yeah, I watched all of Leone's stuff again, and really. It kind of came down to, for me, Once Upon a Time in the West, and what Fonda did, you know, with that first shot and killing that child, was so sinister and so evil, but I couldn't take my eyes off of him. And then you juxtapose that with Newman and Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid, and that kind of swagger and that sense of humor, and I thought, okay, well, I'm neither one of those people, you know, but if I can, you know, kind of just pull a little bit from that, like we all do, and then make it your own.
Yeah, you make every role your own, man. Like we were just quoting Hateful Eight in here, like hours before you even got here. So you know.
Thank you very much.
But very sad. I'm not one of those people. I was like, I can see you doing it. Like, give yourself some.
Navajo.
Let me just sit over here by this window and think about how grateful I am. You know, just they stick up here. Aaron, tell us about Maximus. Like, how does Maximus manage to survive in this world, and what type of character does it take to adapt to that type of world?
Well, I do think that, everyone who's born into that world like Maximus is, I think there's a level of, your nurture that is harsh.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that is a big part of him. Maximus is scarred, literally and, metaphorically in a lot of different ways. But, a lot of that stuff were conversations having with Jonah when we first started this thing and really trying to find what stories were in those scars, and it's exciting. People get a lot more of that when they see the show. But he is a survivor, is who he is, and I think that's an important aspect of all of the main three characters, Ella,
right,
as well as Walt and myself. Yeah.
I think that's what makes these stories so interesting. These survivor stories. There's different types of survivors, right? There's the grizzled one that does it whatever it takes, but then there's the survivors that try to come at things with compassion, and you got to kind of look at the value in both of those things. And I just like the variety of it all, which is what I think a lot of fans love about this. So Graham, speaking of the fans, having a built-in fan base to something like Fallout is obviously great, because you have people primed and ready for this thing to go. But there's also the other side of the coin where you have the skeptical fans and things of that sort, and you got to be mindful of both of those things. How do you deal with kind of creating something like this and appeasing the fans while also giving them something new, while also trying not to piss them off?
Yeah, I mean, when I first met Todd, I made a joke about getting death threats, and he said, I got death threats when Fallout 3 came out, but I won Game of the Year that year. and I kind of was like, cool.
Does that make you feel better?
Yeah. I definitely am still thinking about it. You take that stuff into consideration and take it seriously, but also not too seriously. Otherwise, the audience is going to feel you're executing a job, and no one wants to see that. So they ultimately want to see people enjoy themselves. And I've been playing Fallout since Fallout 1, so enjoying myself was going to be fine. And Genevieve and I really did another deep dive on the games and really kind of looked at how to get the most of the games into these first 8 episodes, and I think we got a lot in. There's still more we want to get in, but we tried not to let it bother us, because I think that would have just been a drag, a drag to do and a drag to watch at the end. So we tried to have fun, and we hope that comes through.
I mean, you still need that creative freedom, right, when it comes to creating these type of things. And I always go with the idea of people don't know what they want until they see it. Yeah. Right. And so I mean, we recently saw the creator of God of War poo-poo on God of War Ragnarok, which is a lot of people will agree with being one of the greatest stories of all time. So sometimes
I'm not gonna poo-poo on anything. I don't poo-poo, but honestly, I do love the source material, so it was sort of effortless.
No, absolutely. That's why I'm really excited for fans to get a load of this and obviously fall in love with this world in the same way they fall in love with the games. And then next thing you know, you have two things: video game and live action that you can go to, which is amazing. Walt, I have a question for you, and I think this is really funny because I love listening to stories about people from other people. And you have a pretty funny story that has to do with Bill Murray, apparently. Apparently he told you he gave you some advice on not to, I don't know if I could curse on here, but not to F up anybody's like takes. Can you like speak to that?
Well, we were working together, and every time I looked at him, I just started laughing. Like it got to the point where he's like, "What, man? I'm just sitting here in a chair." It's the funniest thing in the world to me. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And at the end of a very long day, one day I just said, "Bill, how do you do what you do, man? Like, how do you really do it?" And he said, "By not laughing and fucking up other people's takes." But he was joking, and it was really, really funny. And he's just a great man. Yeah, I adore him like the rest of the world.
That's incredible. I mean, that's a classic Bill Murray story with the dry humor and everything, where you're just kind of like, is he joking? Is he like, I don't understand what's going on here. Yeah. But to Walt and Aaron, do you think like this is the most physically demanding project that you guys have ever done? Because there's a lot that goes into this when it comes to like what it demands from you as like actors, right? Like in this type of world. Like, what would you say it's one of the most physically demanding things you guys have done?
You know what? I can say. I can say this. I wasn't fully prepared what it would be like to put that makeup on every day, and so physically there was stamina involved, and the heat, where we were filming. It wasn't until we got to.
Well, if you say no, we can make it harder on the next season.
If we do.
No, if you wanted to be more physically demanding, it sounds like there was some room to grow there.
No room to grow. No room to grow.
Okay,
no, we did it.
They already took your nose, man. You don't want to lose nothing else.
Yeah, please. No, don't take an ear. Don't take these teeth. No, it was mentally, getting kind of into that makeup every day. But once we got into it, we got into a rhythm. It was okay. We found our groove. But yeah, it wasn't easy.
Okay.
Yeah, it was the most physically challenging production I've ever been a part of, and I sat in a chair, like that. So I can't imagine.
Yeah.
Well, now I have to know this, Todd. Like, as someone who like kind of created this world, and like when you went to set, and like obviously I'm guessing you gave some consultation on everything that's been going on. What was it like, kind of like seeing everything like in real life, like kind of like playing out before your eyes?
I mean, I was ready to go to set, and I was expecting, they'll hide things. There'll be a lot of movie magic. And I said to Jonah, like, where's the movie? They built it. You get there. There's a multi-story vault, the town, and they recreated it from the game. I mean, like, exactly, obsessively. I was like, where are the fake lights? No, I want to be able to move the camera. I want it to go anywhere. And I remember they had the overseer's office. Like, hey, man, sit down, check it out. And it's like every detail. And I sit at the desk, and there's a pile of papers. And on there's a letter, like, to the overseer. And I'm like, wow, so they wrote this letter. But it's a stack. And I flip it open, and then there's a report on, like, the vault's food supplies. And then the power. And I'm like, so it's not just the big things. Yeah. It's like every little detail.
And you could like literally hold in your hand and say like, wow.
I'm like, hold on, I'm reading the vault report, which isn't, it's not going to be on camera, but it might be. And they really just took it to a level that we never expected. Seeing the guy come in the power armor. Yeah. And it's like, it looks sick, it is intimidating. Yeah. Jetpacks, like everything. It was unbelievable seeing it come to life in that way. Yeah.
Gotta be a real treat. I can't imagine creating something and then seeing it like done in that way to the most minute detail.
Yes. Incredible.
To quote Homelander, it was perfect to the most minute detail. I wouldn't recommend quoting Homelander on everything. But Jonah, so then talking about like the set and like kind of creating these things, like there's some incredible special effects here, right? Like you're a master at that. But you said one of the things you were most looking forward to seeing was the location photography. Can you like talk a little bit about like shooting it on location?
We came out of this great lunch with Todd and thought, oh wow, okay, we're gonna make a Fallout series. It's like the dog who caught the car, right? You're like, oh shit, okay, now what do we do? And I remembered a set of pictures that I'd seen when we were scouting for Westworld. And it was a mining town in Namibia that had been left behind, abandoned, filled with sand over the course of 100 years. And it didn't make sense for us in Westworld as masonry construction, bricks. And in the Old West, they didn't have a lot of bricks. But I sort of filed it away in the back of my, back of my head, and then I knew coming out. Literally coming out of lunch, starting with something, and I started thinking about that location. Then you cut to a couple years later, and we're there in the midst of it. We drag the whole crew out there. I mean, we talked about the fact when you have incredibly talented actors, these guys can show up. We could put them on with a cereal box and a green screen, and they could make it work.
Right.
But when you can take them somewhere that is transportive, you've made their work a little easier, and you can see some of that reality reflected, quite literally in their eyes sometimes, but in the way they're experiencing. So this is the way I learned how to do it. Coming up with my brother, this is the way we've always done it. It's the only way I know how to do it.
That's incredible, man. Wow. Like,
It's also when you think about video game, right? These guys do the most beautiful computer graphics in the world. We're not going to come and, we're going to come like, oh, we got our computer graphics, almost as good as yours. It's the one secret weapon we have is reality.
right. I'm gonna use that quote like from now on, because like with video games, obviously like it's a lot of money and a lot of time, I'm sure, but like you have like the freedom to kind of like create the world, whereas when you bring it out into the world, you can create it from the ground up, or in this case, like use the world at your disposal. And I think that's like really cool. Like that's how we bring out the beauty as well. Like you can either go National Geographic or watch Fallout, which is really great. All right, so I have a good question for all of you. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is a film the writers have cited as like a reference, right? For this, what other comparisons would you make for Fallout? Like any other like westerns, any other like things that went into this?
Wow.
How pretentious do we want to get here?
Let's go.
There's shades of Tarkovsky.
Yes.
There's obviously
Yes.
who else is great?
No, we were joking. Greg and I were joking about this the whole way through the shoot, and we got to Namibia and we're shooting a fantastic series of improvised takes with
John Daly and Jake
Aaron's already
Garber.
laughing. He's like, yeah.
with John Daly just going for it, and then sprinting away. And the sun is setting, and we're sort of waiting for that beautiful, magic hour light. And John Daly is making the most ridiculous monologue. And Graham turns to me as we cut the camera. He's like, I got it. It's Tarkovsky with jokes. And I was like, I'm in. I'd watch that.
There's like all this amazing work going into the sort of the mise en scène of it all, and then it's John Daly. I mean,
Doing a dick joke.
doing like really disgusting stuff, and I just felt like I'm so happy to be sullying this beauty.
There's got to be an audience for that.
Yeah.
I am praying that like on the next like TV spot, it's Tarkovsky with dick jokes. Like I think you'll tap into a whole new audience with that one.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for being here, guys. This has been
having
really
us.
great to talk
Thank
about.
you.
This is
Thank
incredible.
you.
Fallout premieres April 11th on Prime Video. I want to thank the Fallout team for stopping by the studio, and I thank you all for watching. You can watch all of our interviews on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Sxsw. I'm your host, Juju Green. Thanks for watching. Oh my God.
Thank you, man. Fantastic.
What a joy.
Great,
Yeah,
man. That
thank
was
you.
wonderful.
We had a lot of interviews today.
Wow.
That was the fun one.
Oh,
Yeah, no
I
shit.
try to make everything fun.
Ella Purnell, Aaron Motton, Walton Goggins, and Kyle McLaughlin. Welcome to FanFest.
Hi.
Thanks for having us. Be here.
Okay, so I'm just going to start with a baseline question, which is hands up if you've played the video games.
Attempted. Was it
Attempted.
tempted?
Attempted counts.
I went in, looked around, and they said, no, I'm not going to be able to do this. This is impossible. I'm too old for this.
Well, we're living in this kind of golden age of video game adaptations to entertainment. Obviously, The Last of Us was the last big one that kind of kicked off from the video game genre. So I'm curious, when you're working on a video game adaptation of this, does it feel any different? Like, do you approach it differently, or does it feel different on set?
The reason why video game adaptations have become so popular is that's where some of the best stories are. It's such an immersive, four-dimensional experience. My son is a big gamer. I don't game at all, and I see him and I watch the way he consumes this entertainment. And yeah, there's action and all the rest of it, but he's not in it for that. He really is in it to be immersed in the world, and it's the spaces in between where the story really takes off that he gets the most out of the experience. And so the only reason that we're here is people have been attempting to do this, and some succeeding and some failing for a number of years, right? But always establishing a beachhead and what works and what doesn't work. And now, here we are, 15, 16, 18 years later, something like that. And to where, the stories have evolved in a way and are so good people are able to execute them, you know, and it's cool. It's just a great form of storytelling.
Well, for those of you who haven't played the game, being on set and seeing it all come to life, did it kind of have you going, what kind of game is this?
I mean, for me, Twitch was huge. I was watching Twitch streamers play because I was like, let me see what the professionals do. And let me see what they enjoy about the game as well. So, I don't know, those first days on sets were actually more like, how incredible that they actually made this, you know? Something that looks pulled directly from it, you know? It's that detailed and that specific and that faithful.
Do you ever go through any kind of lore, and I don't mean like lore as in law, the law, lore school, where it comes to a franchise this big, or is it everything just laid out for you in the script? Was it like that for you, Kyle?
No, I think everything was there, and I certainly, when I walked on set for the first time, which was in the vault, and saw what they'd created, I had a great appreciation for the authenticity. And this, you know, with a very, very, very brief familiarity with the game, but you could see that this was something that they were treating with a great deal of respect. I think for the fans in particular, recognizing that they care about this game a great deal, they care about the world of this game, and far be it from us to sort of take advantage of that or belittle that at all. I think quite the opposite. I think we embraced it and said, hey, let's get in here as far as we can. And I saw that across the board between the actors, the production, the directors, everybody was on board to make this experience as close to what the gamers would feel as possible, and hopefully attract a whole new range of audience as well, who then may in turn get more interested in the game. So it could be a whole cycle.
As our audience knows very well, Todd Howard is the creator of the Fallout series. Now, did you ever get to meet him? And I'm curious, did he just want to tell you more about the games and get you into that world? And did you ever have that kind of connection?
What's funny to me to hear you ask that question is actually Todd spends all his time being so pleased with what we are creating. And, you know, that all comes from this umbrella, you know, Genesis conversation that he and Jonah had about, you know, taking on this challenge of adapting that material.
Now, the game Fallout is this open world where you kind of experience it all, kind of as you explore, but with a TV show, it doesn't really work the same way. So I'm curious, what can you tell fans that, like, what are the main themes you feel like you're exploring in the series?
One thing that Jonah had built into the script with Geneva and with Graham is that so much of the game, as you just said, is predicated on choice, right? And you're faced with these dilemmas, these choices. And not just the four of us, but we all in this story are constantly faced with choices. And on like a moral scale, some will be the erosion of morality, and some will be infused with regaining some bit of your humanity, you know, and that's very, very, very similar to the game. So in some ways, you're kind of playing it without playing it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I actually want to ask you, Walton, about the experience of playing the Ghoul, the bounty hunter gunslinger. What's that like, having to put on those kinds of prosthetics and then like seeing yourself after in the finished cut? What's that experience like?
It was one time we were in Namibia, man. I was so exhausted, and I had this stuff on, and it was these little trailers, whatever they had in Namibia, and I woke up from this very strange nap. And I happened to be sleeping in front of this mirror, and I woke up. I was like, "Oh my God! God damn!" Like, it really freaked me out. I scared the shit out of myself. Is what I'm saying.
It was pretty scary to look at.
Pretty
too.
scary. It was exhausting.
On my side.
Well, on that note, I want to thank you guys so much for joining us here for FanFest. You can all check out the Fallout series on Amazon Prime, April 11th. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for having us.
So I asked some of our games fans what I should ask Todd in particular, and they wanted to know, are you aware that they call you God Howard, and how do you feel about that?
My kids are still wildly unimpressed.
Jonah, I think in a recent interview, you mentioned that one thing you liked about Fallout was how every story in the games can be self-contained, to the extent that this series could be considered Fallout 5. Wow. And I think that may have been misinterpreted in some areas, Would you like to clear the air on that now? Is this quote-unquote Fallout 5?
I think it would be very presumptuous for someone to assume that we'd reach the caliber of the games. But I think the conversation with me and Todd from the very beginning was the way the Fallout universe has been constructed. All of these stories with different characters connecting to the same larger universe. And for us as something to adapt, as a world that we could contribute to, just irresistible. It means you have all of the benefit of beautiful storytelling that Todd and the rest of the team has contributed to, but we also get to tell an original story within that world. Just as writers and filmmakers, it's just a dream come true.
I think we made Fallout 6.
Yeah, we know all about Fallout 5. We're not telling anyone.
Okay. Todd, everything about Fallout 5, now go.
Well, there were some things I said, don't do this, because we are going to do that in Fallout 5. But I think the intent of when you see that, it's how we approached it. I think it's one thing that's unique about this sort of, we'll call it, genre translation of something, whether it's a game or a comic or some other book, is that it wasn't a translation of an existing story. It was, what would the next thing be? It just happens to be a TV show. And that was kind of the approach to it, the same way we approach games, and finding a location, finding tone, but still hitting on those authentic Fallout things that we like the games to have. What does it feel like to be in the vaults and enter the wasteland? What is it like to have these different characters with different motivations? And so that was the approach that these people took, and it was great.
Todd, what do you think as a medium, TV or even just live action in general, can bring to the story that maybe a game couldn't necessarily, or how would it translate?
I mean, look, in many respects, a game is just one portal into viewing this world. Yes, you're in control. But for a lot of people, that can be a bit intimidating. They're not going to sit down and learn a game. There's like a whole process of learning. With doing it in the TV format, it can still be very cinematic. Sort of Jonah says, like we're doing an 8-hour movie here. And it brings it to, if you're a fan of the series already, you can jump in and experience the next chapter in Fallout. If you're not a fan and a bit intimidated by jumping in a game like that, you can experience everything that's great about this world by just clicking your button and enjoying it.
Walton, I had a question for you, and it is, where'd your nose go, bro?
I got to be honest with you, man. I'm so grateful for so many things in my life right now. I mean, the opportunity to work with Jonah and Graham and Geneva and to adapt this game and Aaron and Ella. But the one thing I am more grateful for than anything in my life right now is my nose. I am so grateful
it's a very
for
good
it.
nose.
I give it so much love. I look at it every day, especially after that trailer that was released yesterday. And I'm just, thank God I have a nose. Come on, that was funny, guys. Come on.
Hey, man,
It's a cold room, Walton.
Is there something that stands out from filming this that was particularly strenuous, interesting, or bizarre?
I think they were all strenuous, interesting.
I would be very careful here,
and
fellas.
bizarre.
I would just remember.
If
we get a second season, we may have some more strenuous or bizarre things for you guys to do.
I mean, I guess Walt and I are a little bit of the same school of thought in that, the text is like a map, you know what I mean? It's clues to the experience. And just, I guess if there was anything that was strenuous or exciting, or what we remember most is that like every script had so much detail in it. So we had these amazing maps, to the experience that we were going to put ourselves through. Yeah, every day was a challenge, but rewarding, in the same sort of fashion.
For me, the thing that I was most surprised about this experience, other than actually seeing it come to life whenever we got to these sets, and you would read it and it's like, okay, how are they going to pull that off? And then you would get to set, oh my God, that's how they pulled that off. Wow, we're really in this world. I didn't anticipate how lonely it would be for me as the ghoul. It was a process, and when we first walked out of the trailer, people either couldn't take their eyes of you or didn't want to look at you at all. And I felt very enclosed in that experience, like I was just alone inside of this guy's head, and it took some adjustment. To really kind of understand how to talk to people, kind of as this guy, and how to move in these clothes and move in this world. But once that kind of opened up, and I had the opportunity to play Cooper Howard, which we can't really go into that much, it fleshed the experience out for me. And one was internal, and the other was external.
You know, Geneva and Graham, actually, I wanted to ask you, Fallout, the games and the franchise, has such a distinctive aesthetic and tone. Was there anything outside the Fallout universe that served as inspiration for the look, story, or tone of this?
We always talked about Canticle for Leibowitz as a novel that we absolutely loved, which is a very strange post-apocalyptic story, and it has a lot of the sort of elements of sort of some of the semi-religious aspects of the Brotherhood of Steel in it, and it's all about sort of finding relics from the world before the bombs were dropped and worshiping them. So that was very inspirational for the world that Maximus comes from for us. What about you, Graham?
There's a lot of stuff in there that has nothing to do with the apocalypse, right? Which is sort of the way that the Vault Dwellers lived, which we kind of mapped our own experience out of in COVID onto. It's just sort of like we're patting ourselves on the back for doing such a good job of saving the world by staying indoors and having someone deliver our groceries. And you know, we're very aware that we were Vault Dwellers, and it's a somewhat silly place to be, and we didn't shy away from making fun of ourselves and our role in all of that, and also the Vault Dwellers that way.
From your perspective, what makes a Fallout story a Fallout story?
It has to be fucked up on a really cursory, basic level, just a bit fucked up. I'm sure there's more sophisticated answers, but I just had a lot of barbecue, so I'm
I think that's the perfect answer. I mean, the tone was always what we talked about as the thing that was most sacred to us. Fallout is obviously one of the greatest video games of all time, but for me, what makes Fallout so unique within the category of like best video games of all time is its tone. It's that it's funny, it's weird, it's also full of action. Like it has all those facets to it, and so for us, if we nail the tone, to us we've nailed the show. And of course, we could say you also need story elements that pull from the mythology. There is such a wealth of astonishing creativity that the hundreds of people who've worked on the games for 25 years have brought, that really the problem for Graham and I and Jonah as we all worked on this was leaving things out was excruciating, because there's so much you love.
It always has an element of what would you do to survive? And people are going to make difficult choices, and the bad guys aren't always necessarily the bad guys, and good guys aren't necessarily the good guys, with the element of this romanticism of the past and the naivete of what the nuclear future is going to bring, and then it collapses. So you have this romanticism of the past mixed with the harsh reality and decisions that you have to make in your present.
Aaron, I wanted to know if you could tell me a little bit more about Maximus and what you like about the character.
Do you want to ask why do we care
Why do
about
we
Maximus?
ask that question
Why
first?
do we care?
I guess a good artist is a good question asker, right, Jonah? I think overlooking the obvious as a member of the Brotherhood of Steel, I think what I love most about the character is there's a war going on within him. I guess that's what really most attracted me to him. That's all I could even first get a whiff of from the scripts that Geneva and Graham had sent me, and it reminds me of myself personally. It reminds me of all of us. I think there's so many different things at war within ourselves constantly, and it's a challenge, but it's actually one of the most exciting challenges to get a part where you get to be at war within yourself.
Given that we're all understandably wary of spoilers, is there something that each of you is most excited for people to see once this is out?
I'm sure other folks are going to talk about the armor, so I'll go with Mr. Handy. I just love Jonah's work is remarkable in that he insists on building as much as we can practically. So we had this physical, very funny sort of puppet essentially to work with, and for me, just seeing that come to life with the actor that we have voicing him, I'm really excited for fans to see.
I'm simply going to harvest your organs.
Are we saying it's Matt Berry? I think we may be saying
Well, I think
it's
you
Matt
just
Berry.
did, so I guess
people know it's Matt Berry. Yeah.
Well done.
You're not hiding that voice.
Yeah,
It's
I
in
guess
the
that's
trailer.
fair. Who was I kidding?
I think for me, the one of the things I'm most excited for people to watch is one of the things that I was most excited to read in the script. It turned out to be Ella's first day shooting on set, which is a love scene. Then we went to lunch, and then we came back, and it becomes something very, very different. It was the moment for me reading the script where I thought, oh, we've got something pretty wild here.
Just as a fan of the games, the opportunity to show more of the world before the bombs dropped. There's a whole show there too, and we're putting it inside this show. There's not enough episodes to cram in how much stuff we want to cover, but in success will have the opportunity.
It's no secret from the trailer that there is a Western element to this show, and I'm a part of that experience. The thing that I'm most excited for the audience to see is how organically the origin story and how organically it's tied into this visual expression of this experience. It's there for a reason. And for me, when I read it and I understood it, it's like, oh wow, of course, this is what it is. I've never experienced anything like that, and I've done a number of westerns in my career, but this is it's pretty cool. Did I say, was that okay? Are we okay? Nobody can hear us.
We'll
right
talk
now,
later,
right?
Walton.
Okay.
What's your Austin's experience been like thus far? Aaron, are you from here?
Born and raised, yeah.
What's that been like to return home? And what's it been like for you guys bringing the show down here?
I mean, just personally for me, this is a totally different town than the one I grew up in. You know, I do think when I left, there was 20 cranes in the sky any direction you look down here, but it's you know, it's a whole different beast with the same highways.
I think there's just a swagger to Austin and to South by Southwest, and it's just a relaxed, cool. I've been here a number of times and worked in this city, you know, a few times over the years, and it's a jewel, right? It's when they talk about some of the best cities in America, Austin is always in it, and this film festival is a big part of that experience for people.
This is actually my first South by Southwest.
How is that possible?
I come to Austin a bunch because we have a development studio here. Actually, one of our main Fallout teams is here in Austin. They still do Fallout 76, which is our online version of Fallout. And Austin, for a long time, I don't know if people know, is a hub for the gaming industry. Origin Systems back in the day, and the Ultima series and role-playing games. So it is this incredible hub of both creativity and music, but also technology. So I've been coming for a very, very long time, but they used to tell me, like, you know, you might want to skip South by. It's really busy and all these things. I usually do studio visits, but it's great coming down, being able to visit the studio, be with the team, look at the games, and then come here and do all of this.
Yeah, we love Austin. This is one of the very first places we showed anybody anything from Westworld, and it's been special to come back ever since. Love it. I'm Todd Howard. I'm the spiritual godfather of the project.
I'm Geneva Robertson-Dworak, showrunner.
I'm Jonah Nolan. I make beauty.
I'm Graham Wagner. I'm one of the executive producers and writers of Fallout.
You wish.
I'm just a boy who's wandered in, found a spot on the couch, and I ain't leaving. So I also am a writer. I should say it's easy for these guys because you've seen them before. My name's Graham. I'm a writer.
Yeah, I'm Aaron Moten. What's up?
What we always felt was sacred about the games is their tone. It's what makes them utterly unique within sort of the pantheon of the greatest games of all time, which obviously Fallout is. It's filled with action. It's fun. It's weird, and we knew we had to land that. And if we did, we felt like then we would have a Fallout adaptation worth watching.
I did not play the game before, and I knew once we started getting into these discussions. I've said this before, but I really felt that there needed to be someone at the table who wasn't concerned with keeping up with the mythology of this show, you know, this story. That there were.
Walton, you told us repeatedly that you had played the games. You loved the games. That was a big part of your sales pitch.
But now I've got the job and I finished it, Jonas. So now I can tell the truth. Please, I'm answering the question. Please. No, because you know, I at the end of the day, to look at a story based on the merits of the story itself, and that was how I felt like I could contribute.
I can only just concur. Exactly the same. Didn't play the games, and I'm so interested in the world, and I at least had the, you know, there's a plethora of source material of people playing the games online, which was really vital to me. I really enjoyed that.
But I have a quick question to ask. So, but did you make a story about the people that were playing the game online?
Did I make a story about the people that were? Oh, like I wrote scripts for them and shot it for them a little.
Character on people playing the game on YouTube.
I based my character off of Twitch streamers that I thought were we're underappreciated.
We definitely didn't ask the actors to play the games. We actually had a conversation about how annoying it would be if they were concerned with anything other than their character and what their character was going through. It would, you know, we have more than enough people, you know, including Todd right here, including right down to PAs on set who knew everything about the games. So we were well covered, and we just wanted to make sure these guys always felt like their responsibility was their character and not the greater world.
In short, our actors' contribution to the project was not doing their homework.
I think it's key, though. You kind of almost want to remove the video gaminess from it, right? The games are a lens into that world, and the show is another lens. If you're too focused on, like, this is a game mechanic or it was a video game, that can lead you to some choices maybe that aren't the best for focus on the world, focus on the characters, present it with authenticity to the world that it is.
There's a lot of questions about, you know, and I've sort of gone through this twice now, through comic book movies and being there kind of not the beginning exactly, but the beginning of this big wave that we've gone through. Adaptation is always the question of what do you keep, what do you leave behind? And I think, you know, we had the benefit of looking at some of the early adaptations of video games. And I think, for instance, people would imagine that the way to do a video game adaptation is first-person camera, right? Which, I mean, there are like 3 first-person camera movies in the history of filmmaking. It's not how grammar works in film and television, but it is how grammar works in video games. I prefer first-person video games. So it's one of the examples where you're not actually doing justice to the source material by just imitating it or imagining that you're just going to do it. I think for us it came from a place of loving the games, playing the games, and wanting, as Todd said, to find the essence of the games, thematically, tonally, the way they make you feel, and find a way to evoke that feeling using actors, cameras, and all the tools that we have.
I work in half-hour sitcoms for the most part, so all of it I assumed we were not going to be able to pull off. But the reason Geneva and I kind of felt so secure going into this is that Jonah's a guy who's landed these things and landed them tastefully, and it's not been cartoon world. It's, you know, and doing it that way was a lot of work for me because I'm a lazy person. But it was I think from my perspective it worked out.
Yeah, and Jonah, I mean, should speak to how much we did practically. I mean, that was going in, I assumed a lot of things would be VFX, but then, you know, part of Jonah's method is you build everything you possibly can, and that was absolutely amazing. It meant going to set every day was sort of like Christmas morning, where it was just remarkable to see what our production design team had just built overnight. Like sometimes entire towns had been erected on backlots and in sort of empty parking lots.
Coming up with my brother, this was the way we learned how to make movies. Some of my earliest memories, making movies with my brother, and it was always this emphasis. We didn't have money for vis effects when we were 10 years old, so we just had to figure it out. One of the challenges of adapting a video game is you're losing a lot of things. You're losing the freedom to look in any given direction. You're losing the freedom to make different moral choices, especially in a role-playing game. One of the things we can bring to the table is reality. So for us, the idea that we would do a computer graphics version of a beautiful video game didn't pass muster at all. You know, we had to go pick up the crew, pick up the cast, go down to Namibia, find beautiful locations, go out to Utah, find some of these incredible rundown, weathered Air Force bases and mining towns, and really put it all. I mean, when you have terrifically talented actors, if we'd had terrifically talented actors, you could put them anywhere. You could put them in front of a green screen. These guys will bring it wherever you go. But if you can give them a little bit of reality, it makes their job easier. And I think the audience feels it at the end of the day.
Like if acting were carrying heavy books upstairs, having someone take some books from you, I think you actually just get to invest in the books that you do have to carry a little more. It'd be like if you had a house that you're supposed to live in. I mean, in my own home, I know where I got every dish. Every piece of something has some type of story, and that's a lot of work that you do as an actor. So yeah, having the practical elements in a show like this, it really helps you hyper focus on really digging your roots into the world?
I don't know. This coach that I had for such a long time would talk about Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and people like looking up. It's like, oh, you're looking at a grip's ass, really, and it's a UFO, right? So you live in your imagination, and there are moments where we do that kind of in this show. But for the most part, to walk onto a fully realized three-dimensional kind of experience. Yeah, it's just easier to turn on your imagination, because you're right there. And I didn't anticipate it being so tactile, because you read it on the page and it's like there is no way to really execute this without that. And he did, and they did, and it was extremely gratifying on every level. I'll just jump in here because there's not much that we can give away. But everybody has things with their characters just from an actor's standpoint. I'm just really excited about the duality of the two people that I got to play, and one that existed or was alive before this horrific event, and one who's been around for the last 200 years after. And the opportunity that Jonah and Geneva and Graham gave me was something that I will never forget, and we're right in the middle of it, and it was really something.
Yeah, for me, it is the one thing the games could never do a lot of or do well is show the world before the bombs fell. It's the thing that really makes Fallout extra special is that romanticism of and naivete of what nuclear future would be, and then it all goes wrong. And the show has an ability to go back and mine that in really, really unique and smart ways, and what they've done with it. And that's been, whenever I saw those pages and then saw on the screen, it was a real treat.
I think something I'm really excited for people to see in the show is also something that's very true of the games, which is there's so many post-apocalyptic narratives out there. And I always loved that the games were fun and didn't take themselves that seriously, even though they deal with what could be very sad subject matter. And I hope that's something we brought to the show.
10 years ago, I had dinner with Kyle MacLachlan to try to twist his arm into being in a little itty-bitty sitcom, and I was, making small talk with, and I just sort of asked him, what do you want to do? And he looked up and he said, I'd love to be in a great big sci-fi. And I feel like we did it. There's no ending to that. I'm just going to peter out as I do.
I think for me, the challenge and the opportunity on this one of the things I'm most excited for the audience to see is the humor of the show. The unique tone of the show is one of the things I was struck by playing Fallout 3 all those years ago. And for me, as a director, an opportunity to work with terrifically talented actors in that slightly less structured space where you can find something funny on the set together. That was a real joy.